Austin.
Yep. I think we're live at least. Yes, we are live. Okay. Yep.
Perfect.
I think we're live.
Cool. If you want to get the timer ready, I will start reading off the situation.
Yep. Clock's ready.
Perfect. Based on the situation in scenario 3, you contemplate moving into a position to assist battalion, but you decide that your orders to guard the flank are explicit and that you had best stay put. You set your 3 rifle squads in a blocking position in the trees along the east-west road near checkpoint 37, preparing to repel any enemy approaching from the west. You decide to try to suppress the western enemy gun position with an attached machine gun squad, and you let battalion know that you can adjust supporting arms on the eastern enemy gun position. You also can't resist sending your platoon sergeant due north with a small reconnaissance patrol to check out the situation along the ridge. The enemy machine guns fall silent as you suppress with supporting arms and your own machine guns. Battalion has successfully outflanked the enemy and is advancing north again. At about 21:30, your platoon engages an enemy patrol of about squad size approaching from the northwest. The enemy patrol withdraws hurriedly whence it came. Checking the scene of the firefight, you recover 2 enemy corpses. Artillery impacts several hundred meters west of your position. That was about a half hour ago. You have had no enemy activity since then. Your platoon sergeant returns to report that he reached the ridge and reconnoitered a couple hundred meters each direction. The only contact he made was an enemy LP which fled west. He also reports the sound of enemy armor, a platoon or company at most, he estimates, revving up north of the ridge. Suddenly, battalion comes under heavy fire as it nears Narrow Pass. The enemy machine guns that you engaged open up on the battalion again, this time from either flank. It is apparent that the enemy has a sizable force at the pass. From the radio traffic you discern that the battalion has been hit hard. 2 companies are unable to advance and are taking casualties. Anxious to help, you contact battalion to offer your services. Just wait out, the S3 snaps agitatedly. We've got other things to worry about now. The time is now 2200 hours. What do you do? Within a 5-minute time limit, prepare the frag order, if any, you would issue to your squad leaders and attachments, including the intent of your plan. Include any plans for the use of supporting arms, an overlay of any scheme of maneuver, and any further communications you would make with battalion. Then give a brief explanation of your rationale.
Can we go back and read 3? Because I don't remember doing that.
Yeah, I can give us a reading of 3.
Just because 3 also provides information, I would imagine here.
Yeah, for
sure.
sure.
Be a follow-on.
Did we do 3?
Again, I'm pretty sure we did, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
I remember last time we did 2. We did the convoy ambush, and then we did the first one, which was the getting ambushed in the middle of a field.
That was what I thought. Chesh, you have the VOD.
I have the video too. Let's look. Yeah, looking, we only did the first 2.
Okay. In that case, let's do 3.
Yeah, let's pivot. Okay.
Here, I've got the images already uploaded. I'll put them on the boards.
Perfect.
Oh, I do have it like in the chat. If I just copy it.
I'm
just doing this in Paint because I find it better.
Yeah, I can put the image in the chat. 1 sec.
Thanks.
There is scenario 3.
Okay. We are no longer from bad to worse. We are just attack on Narrow Pass. Let me know when we're all ready.
Green to go.
Oh. Lambda, you pulled up?
Yeah, sorry.
Yep. Albina, you good?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Attack on Narrow Pass. You're the commander of 1st Platoon, Company Company 1, 3rd Battalion, 6th Marines. 6th Marines have been attacking north with the intention of destroying enemy forces in Sanctuary Plain and have already landed a helicopter-borne company in the plain near Sanctuary City. The helicopter-borne force has become besieged, and 3-6 has the mission of launching a relief attack into the plain to reinforce the helicopter-borne force and continue the offensive. Implied in this mission is forcing passage onto the plain. The terrain south of Sanctuary Ridge is generally rugged and underdeveloped, with thick vegetation and severe relief. The enemy you have been fighting is primarily infantry with small numbers of tanks. It is 2015, there is a full moon. Your platoon, reinforced with 2 machine gun squads from Weapons Platoon and 2 Dragon teams with night trackers from Weapons Company, advances along the battalion's left flank with instructions to guard that flank. Moving parallel to a narrow foot trail, but not on it, you cross a dry, rocky gully about 3 to 4 feet deep and 20 meters wide without making contact. But as you approach checkpoint 37, your point squad makes contact with what appears to be a listening post that immediately flees northwest towards the western narrow pass. Moments later, a major firefight breaks out in the thick woods to your east. From radio transmissions, it is clear that the main body of the battalion has been halted by a significant enemy force and is taking casualties. Your best guess is that the engagement is taking place near the narrow bridge. From your position, you can see several enemy machine guns on the ridge to your northeast opening up in support of the firefight. On the conduct of fire net, you hear the battalion directing supporting arms onto the enemy position at the bridge. Transmissions on the tactical net are somewhat unclear, but it appears the battalion is attempting a right flanking movement against the enemy position. Except for the listening post that fled, there is no sign of enemy activity in your area. What do you do? Requirement. Within a 10-minute time limit, prepare any frag orders you would issue to your squad leaders and attachments, including your intent. Include any plans for the use of supporting arms, an overlay of your scheme, and any communications you would make with higher headquarters. And there's a blurb. Acting with initiative does not mean being a loose cannon. It's important to coordinate up and down the chain and laterally. What reports will you make to higher headquarters? Okie dokie.
Okay, I'm set for the timer. We ready to go?
Well, that's a step up from the first one, too.
Yep. Timer starts now. 10 minutes on the clock.
So we're doing scenario 3.
Yes.
Hey,
Hello,
Gator.
hello, hello.
What the fuck going on here?
We are in the middle of one of the TDGs. If you want to join, you can pull up the PDF and run it on a 10-minute interval. We're doing scenario 3.
Stop moving my fucking map.
I can do that? My bad.
Yeah, you're clicking on my map and moving it.
I thought it was just client side. Sorry, I was just trying to look.
Oh, you're good. Just be careful.
Not touching.
Yeah, right click, drag to, oh shit. Fuck, what happened here? Right click, drag to move. Left click to click and drag.
I thought I was just spectating.
No, all these boards are editable.
Trying to zoom out. Does that affect it?
Scroll wheel does not affect it.
Okay, that's all I just want to see. That's all I want to do.
Mm-hmm. Four minutes left on the clock. One minute 30 left on the clock. time is up. Time is up. Pause all
Pencils
planning.
down. Anyone want to go first? I can do mine, but I've already done this one before.
I don't want to spoil it, but I can also go first.
I'll go ahead and go first because I've got a comprehensive frag order, and I think that will lay out a good baseline for what the rest should look like. So with this one, if everyone wants to come to my map,
How do you go to different people's maps?
click on the little
What? What's going
On the
on?
what?
click on the hamburger menu, the view boards next to the board title,
Mm,
and
that is
then you can
right
come to based, which is mine.
wow.
Yeah, top left.
Remember, you threw me off for a second.
I know. UI designer term. Right.
Albina, you're on my board right now.
I know. I'm looking
Okay.
at it.
Okay.
Okay.
Alright.
So here's the frag order I will give. Command, we're going to push Hill 37 and Recon Northwest. We'll suppress your western contact. All elements, we are stopping at the edge of the northern tree line so Dragon teams can scout the hill for EI. If no additional EI, MG1 will suppress the western MG as all other elements advance up the left ridge of 37. MG2 and Bravo will then set up on the crest to suppress western contact. MG1, you will displace and bound north to the top of the ridge. Alpha, Charlie, and Dragons will set up on the north ridge to begin a recon. We are blocking armor and scouting for enemy weaknesses. If you spot armor, Dragon will engage. The intent is to reconnoiter northwest from the top, and we will be suppressing that western machine gun. We are keeping armor from rolling up on friendlies. All copy. And then from there, the plan would engage. And so, as you can see, I have that marked out as well. So, if anyone has any suggestions, critique, or feedback, now is the time to give it.
I guess I'll go first then. So I think one thing that might be a good thing to add to your frag order is maybe giving an understanding of how the squads are meant to maneuver. Because one of the things that I've noticed in session a few times is that when platoon issues an order to a squad, they'll typically just say go to a waypoint, and they won't describe how they want them to go to a waypoint. So in this case, since you have this nice ridgeline with a finger that sticks out to the south, it might be pertinent to say that you want your squads on the reverse slope or the opposite slope of the guns so as to keep them in defilade for the longest amount of time. Because otherwise, without that without that instruction, there is a possibility, however slim, that they might actually climb the slope on the face where the gun can look at them.
Right. I was
And it
hoping that by
is-
saying climbing the left ridge, that would come across, but I think using more specific terms like defilade to the west, that would make better sense.
Yeah, in defilade. Yep.
Albina, did you have something?
Is it very? Is it aggressive? Like, it is aggressive, but is it too aggressive? Like,
How so?
I have spoilers because I read the next scenario.
Well, we all did, but yeah.
That's fine.
But like the listening post guys, they ran away in a particular direction.
Mhm.
We're overlooking we're about to overlook the western narrow pass. But what if they did go that way? What if they'll come down like this direction and we won't see them, or we hopefully we'll see them.
Yeah,
Tonight.
I think that's a great point.
We
my
don't know
thought-
what's over here is the problem. Like
Right. That's why I'm saying that we're scouting from the top of this ridge facing out
yeah.
towards northwest. That way we can scout this western pass, and we're already compromised. They know we're here, so I'm comfortable engaging. Yeah, and this team, which is Alpha, I should, put a mark for that specifically, would be looking out towards the western side, and we have the
Yeah.
Dragons, which are able to provide that security.
I would also say, in defense of this, your immediate priority is not necessarily the enemy that may occur. Your immediate priority is the enemy that you
The
do
enemy
know of
that's-
immediately. Yeah.
That's true.
My only thought here is that is, even if it is hopefully, on the left side, you're not near the MGs that we know of. It is still like a 500-meter assault up a hill. That I don't know. Maybe there is some kind of cover and concealment going up it, but
Mhm.
it would suck for the battalion if you now just dragged another platoon into a hot spot that needs to get gotten out of.
That's a fair point.
I think it's safe to assume that, considering that the information provided is that when the recon squad pushed across, they did not spot or observe any fortifications on the high ground. Just the LP team that tripwired them.
Wait, what recon squad?
You had sent in the description. You had sent a squad
That's-
forward.
That's in scenario 4.
Yeah, it's future information. We don't know that yet.
But as you approach checkpoint 37, your point squad makes contact with what appears to be a listening post. Checkpoint 37 is right here at the base of the hill.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about, sorry. Not a recon
Okay.
squad, but a point squad.
Okay, I see what you're saying now.
Yes. Terminology, especially in this, is important. Fair enough. It's also just like, I think another defense of being aggressive with a platoon like this that is free is that your goal here, your end goal, or at least the company or battalion's end goal, is not to be caught here. And so as a result, in support of that, it's the most ideal situation to clear contact for or lift fire on the rest of the battalion, so that way they can maneuver with
Yeah.
impunity.
Your objective is to get somewhere. It's not necessarily to
Yeah.
win this one place.
Yeah.
Because the other thought is we're acting with extreme aggression on a flank that they don't expect. They know our platoon is here. They've anticipated that. We've proven that they only have a listening post here to protect their flank. Now that we've tripped that, we can push it hard and possibly take out what's over here. We're exposing ourselves on this side. That's an unknown, but that's why we have contingencies. Worst comes to worst, we just run back before they can get anything into place.
So that's not necessarily what I was going for, but I do agree with it. I was more so saying that, like, you are in support of the battalion's objective. Albina's correct. If this was we're searching and destroying X force, then there is a reasonable case to assume that we should not be this aggressive and we should be in support of the battalion or company's objective of fixing this target in place and destroying it. But in this case, our goal here is just to enable the company or battalion to maneuver, either by bypassing this enemy or destroying them in this case.
Yeah. Fair point. Okay, we've spent a lot on my plan. Let's move on to someone else.
Any volunteers?
I'll describe mine. I didn't draw it all because I thought it was shared.
Sure.
But,
Make sure you give it as a fragmentary order.
I don't know the format of that, so I'm just gonna read what I wrote.
No, so how you want to give it is pretend you're briefing Bravo 1 and Bravo 2, right? So take it from like a session prompt and go like, B1, we're assaulting Hill 37, B2, you're laying down suppressive, that kind of thing. That's how these operate.
But I have 3 squads, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
can do
you
Alpha,
adapted.
Bravo, Charlie.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I knew the flaws with this plan as I was writing it. But Alpha takes up position west of checkpoint 37, looking northwest. The direction that the listening post ran off to. Second squad, that's Bravo. Bravo goes northwest, takes up I can draw this. I can draw this part. Bravo takes up that position south of the road with a dragon team to form an L shape on this corridor. With the dragon team, Charlie takes 2 machine guns east of 37. So like here. That's not. Where's the eraser?
You can select the drawing and
I
then
can select
just,
what I drew and delete.
yeah.
Yeah, Charlie sets up east with 2 machine gun teams and a dragon, and they suppressed the 2 machine guns. And one of Alpha's fire teams, this is because I had spoilers. One of Alpha's fire teams with the platoon sergeant reconnoiters this ridge. I'll let the platoon sergeant handle how he's going to do that.
I will caveat that the spoilers from the next section are just for that particular scenario. This can be played out in any way.
Yeah, I understand. It's just it was a good idea.
Fair enough.
And then I have what I'll send up to higher and lateral units.
Yeah, just format suggestion in the future, be like, Bravo, you're moving to the left, towards the western intersection, and facing west or facing north, like you're briefing them specifically. That way we're getting in practice for that. Though I do like how you've set that up.
I see. So it's
Yeah.
like, I didn't do that?
You kind of did. You kind of described where they would move.
But you weren't addressing them directly as if they were real people.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah.
And what I'd say to command is, I've reached checkpoint 37. I've been spotted. I'm spreading out to the platoon at checkpoint 37, protecting the battalion's left flank. I'm going to engage the machine guns engaging battalion on the bridge. I'm going to reconnoiter the left flank of the ridge.
Cool.
And then I'm going to hang up the phone. They're busy. They're in trouble. They're dying. I don't want to.
If you don't mind, could you go over what you think the flaws of this plan are? Because you mentioned before that you understood that there are some very particular flaws to this.
Checkpoint 37 gets hammered by artillery and Alpha dies. Immediately.
Actually, you're looking at the wrong plan. This one's secret.
I would like to note that there is no mention of enemy artillery in this scenario, so at least you're safe from that. There could be, but it is not in the scope of this scenario, unfortunately.
Really? Okay. So there's nothing wrong with my plan.
Okay. Fair point.
It's just like so like in that case, like them knowing that them assuming that so my assumption is the listening post people run away. Maybe they assume that I'm going to take up their old position, so they'll try to attack it, and Bravo's there along the way in an unexpected place, and they'll walk into an ambush. Hopefully.
Okay.
I don't know. And Alpha has sight lines on the western pass, and Bravo has sight lines on this forest.
So I've got an interesting question for you, and
Yeah.
it doesn't really have a correct answer. How would you describe this as being in support of the company or battalion's mission currently?
I'm going to suppress and or destroy those machine guns, and I'm going to protect their left flank.
Could you elaborate on how you're suppressing those machine guns? Because
I'm using two machine gun teams, and I'm not maneuvering on them.
Yes.
I'm just shooting at them with 2 machine gun teams and a squad.
From the low ground through foliage at a fortified position. I just want to clarify that.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another question.
Maybe through the process of the sergeant's recon mission that we decide for Charlie to pick up and maneuver, but that's not in the cards right now for me.
Yep, fair enough. Another question I have for you is, do you have any concern for perhaps the enemy armor that is mentioned in the situation to come from Sanctuary City, and for you to not have eyes on that or any prior warning of that? Is that a concern for you?
Where did I put my dragon teams? I put one with
Charlie.
I put one with Charlie, and I put one with Bravo.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to ask why the
Bravo
dragon team
doesn't
was
have-
with Charlie.
Optics, from what I understand, right?
No, maybe. No, I don't really have eyes here. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just maybe it's useful.
The night optics
when I think
are
about
useful.
it now with that question, I would put that second dragon team with Alpha
Mhm.
because they have eyes on the Western Narrow Pass.
Because my other side with the dragons is I don't think putting them
They'd
in
be effective here.
foliage.
Yeah.
This area doesn't feel like it's making the best use of that team.
No, I wouldn't say so.
They've only got
I'm not
range of like a
too familiar
kilometer.
with its. I'm not too familiar with its capabilities. So
It's a man-portable ATGM.
right.
Yeah, but they
okay.
only got a range of like a kilometer. So basically, from your checkpoint 37, you may probably not actually able to hit the Western Narrow Pass.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's like the maximum limit. I think that's correct.
But then like the armor is not going to do anything from here. They're going to have to go down here.
Yeah,
or
I agree.
go-
I'm not saying you're wrong. I
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
the idea that you are making them less effective by putting them in the woods where you did, because I think that's a good place. I think, and we'll see when I talk about my thing, because I did the same thing with one of my dragon teams. Is
Mm.
that's like 400 or 500 meters away,
Mhm.
which based on how accurate the dragon is, I think is maybe a benefit.
And I guess like my other thing is I have a little bit of more of a assumption of an authoritative leadership above me. So
Mhm.
like I'm assuming that if they want me to maneuver on the ridge, they'll tell me. And I'm just working off what they last told me to do, which is I think I maybe I didn't comprehend the prompt correctly, but my assumption is I'm protecting the left flank. I'm still gonna do that. If they want me to maneuver, they'll tell me, and then I'll figure out how to do that.
I
Mhm.
think that's
do that.
reasonable. I would also caveat that with the fact that transmissions on the tactical net are somewhat unclear, but it appears
Yes.
Battalion is attempting a right flank.
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
you do have a certain uncertainty that gives you tactical
Yeah.
leeway to maneuver.
And I think
Okay, the other
with
thing with them, like, sorry, Chesh, I'll let you answer after I say this, but like, battalions attempting a right flank. The way I would think about it is, a double pincer is more risky than a single pincer.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather have one. The way I'm thinking in this situation, I'd rather have one solid flank and one pincer than two pincers and less solid.
Yeah, I think with the context of company conducting or battalion conducting a right flank maneuver, I think having some restraint in your movement is actually preferable in this case. That's not to say that taking the ridge isn't a fantastic idea, but I do think that
Yeah.
you holding perhaps the low ground is not necessarily as bad as, say, holding at the river or pushing past the pass or any variety of too aggressive or too limp-wristed.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, my options are still open, but just later.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right? Like the time circumstance is different because like what if what if there was a battalion there won't be, but like what if there was a battalion of infantry here for some fucking reason, like I don't know.
In this case, I have a
like-
question.
Then my sergeant with his patrol would find it and he'd be like, oh, either they all die instantly and I know not to go up there,
Mhm.
or I know that they exist and can send it up to battalion.
I've got a question, and this is another leading question.
Yeah.
Would it not be preferable, maybe, in this case, to not reveal that you are on the left flank by having Charlie suppress the gun position, especially if battalion's already conducting maneuvers to the right flank?
They already know I'm there.
Yes, but
If the listening post did their job, they know I'm there.
they
And
might not
all I'm
know your
signaling-
disposition, though, because they've only spotted the point squad.
Oh, they only spotted the point squad. That's fine. I think the only thing I'm revealing is that maybe they saw a point squad and they didn't see a machine gun team.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm really revealing, and I'm basically where they saw me go.
Okay. Yeah, I agree
think
with
it's
that.
a solid defensive plan. I think it's counter to the way that I would approach it, but that doesn't make it wrong, right? I think if you swap that dragon team over here towards, like you were already saying, a more advantageous
alpha,
position, you've already got a pretty solid left flank covered. That said, I think we've been talking a lot. Does anybody else on the call have any feedback for this plan?
kind of like you just said, I think they're both good plans. Like compared to Apple's plan and your plan, they're just different approaches. Like one is very aggressive, one is very defensive, but they're both good plans. But also, like, because I don't have the context of the briefing or anything like that. When you say Dragon, is that just like coding for a recon team, or is that like a Dragon like ATGM team?
It's a Dragon
ATGM.
ATGM.
Gotcha.
Here, I threw the briefing in the channel chat.
Does anybody have anyone else have any further feedback for Albina?
All right, who'd like to go next? I think that's just Lambda, right?
Yeah, it's just me. So I mean,
What
hi.
Their
Are
paint.
you yup or?
Yup is me. I have a late entry.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
They are the paint file in the channel chat.
Oh, it's deep
Well,
fried.
I also pasted it onto a page. You can
Oh,
find
did you?
it there.
Okay.
Paint file
Yeah, I
has some
see
more
that
of the
stuff.
edges that you can't see because it's cut off. In fact, actually, can I just take this and drag it?
Yeah, you should be able to
I
reshrink
just
it.
saved the image that.
Oh
Josh
no,
posted.
that's the background. That's why.
I can report your
That's like-
background.
Whatever.
Narc.
Just know that there's more space on the left. I didn't mark a super ton for this one because I feel like there's a lot more room for these squads to go.
Mhm.
But I guess we'll get into that when I talk about it. So I'm gonna actually start with the platoon orders. So giving orders to actual squads here.
Okay.
So first of all, intent here is to support. It was the company, correct? Let me look at the briefing again, so I'm not saying the right words. Sorry, I've been talking for a minute, so I lost track, and I didn't write this down, which was smart.
It's
Albina.
battalion.
Well, so it's a battalion, but we're subject to a company. Yeah.
Yeah, we're with 3-6.
Okay. Obviously, I'm not passing above my company's head, so
Mhm.
well, at least I don't imagine that is a good approach. Anyways, so 3-6 is the one that's getting bamboozled. Anyways, so we're here to support 3-6 they're getting fucked up right now over to our east. We're not going to do super heroic things and assault it, but we are going to have Alpha here. You're going to push northwest, try to stick to the trees, but if you don't have a good eyes going west, push further west there. First Dragon team's going to go with you, A, to provide better recon, but B, also to cover that western narrow pass. You are our defense to try to fix anything that comes through there, whether it's armor or infantry. Carly, you're going to push further east here. Take one of the MMGs with you. Your goal isn't to suppress, but rather to... Oh, did that just get deleted? Oh, okay, reconnecting, sorry. Isn't to suppress, but rather to cover if anything comes down that hill to attack 3-6 directly. If you do see good targets to hit, whether it be the MMG or your guys, feel free to take action on that, but do know that you are downhill from some big guns. So make sure you think about that, or let me know what's going on there if you do go into anything. Bravo, you are going to have the last MMG and the Dragon team here. You're going to spread out on this line. Dragon team, you're going to actually do a reconnaissance on that ridge line, see if you can see anything of interest. This orange line is where I'd probably draw a finger just to highlight that that is a finger going out there. Mainly we're looking at the western side of that finger, so keep eyes on that. If the MMG can stick further east, that would be preference. Find some good positions in case you do have to fire and move here. Again, it is night, so you do light up like none other. And then we'll play it from there. That was it. Then for the platoon, or sorry, passing up to the company level, right? We're letting them know we're moving forward. I guess here, let me do this. So, company, this is what we're 3-6. We're part of 3-6. What's our platoon?
We could just consider it first platoon.
Yeah, we're first.
Yeah, okay. Company, this first platoon. First platoon's moving to fix the western narrow pass as well as provide supporting fire if needed on the eastern narrow pass. Looking to assault the hills if needed or move to support. And just basically leave them an open line to contact us. That wasn't good. I don't do a lot of, and at least in my past, haven't done much with stuff above the squad level. So Anyways, the main idea here is that I don't want to be too aggressive, but I also don't want to be unprepared if I have to be aggressive.
Mm.
And to answer some of the questions I know that Josh would like to ask, and etc. I do think it is a bad idea to fire up that machine gun, but I think it's better than just letting it continue to shoot. I don't think the assault up the hill is the best idea, and I wasn't going to even send a recon up there. I was just going to scope it out originally, because I tried to ignore the first prompt. It may have been contrarian more so than like actual good thought, but that was what the second Dragon team was supposed to do, is to give us eyes on it to figure out if there was a good path forward for that. As far as Alpha, they're kind of out there on their own. It's probably like 200 meters away. But they're doing an important job, right? Both blocking and doing some recon, so.
These are MMG position, or these are enemy machine gun positions?
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
Sure. I didn't have the context.
I think that is the machine guns that the Marines use in their drawings. At least that's what it's been so far when we looked at the other ones.
Also, you said Alpha is far away. And they're really not. 200 meters is less.
Yeah, it is a bit if we have to go through like thick forest. And I would, maybe I didn't say this clearly, and that might be on me again, my briefing skills. But they are able to move further west. And I don't actually think I mentioned the limit of advance was the edge of those trees because I couldn't see them anymore. But the edge of the trees is like their limit of advance. Just forming some kind of L shape though to give defense to our western flank was the goal.
Yeah. No, I think in the same vein as Albinus, this is a really solid plan because it shows like a good presence of mind for all of your units working in conjunction with each other without extending them too far out. I actually think that your Alpha being pushed out to 250 is actually a solid distance for them to be at. I personally probably would have preferred them a little bit closer, but that's just because I'm squeamish about them being unsupported and with the trees and whatnot, because I think the rule of thumb is like in a tree line, especially if it's dense, like 200 meters is the common view distance or something along those lines. So for sure. I think the same stuff applies to Albina's and yours. So good.
Yeah, which is why I was very supportive of Alvina's plan. It's the right idea to put your Dragon there. Because the Dragon range is like a kilometer, all right? So like if the Dragon goes with Charlie, they can't even hit the road. If the Dragon stays with the Bravo, at least they have eyes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I definitely think that in hindsight, I think this plan really allows you to be more adaptable to a situation. I think both mine and Appo's plan are a little firm, and we're not very reactive in the case of our stuff because it's a very much a, hey, we're pushing this, we're going to do this, our landing ports are here, and those are probably flexible, but we have to accomplish X thing in order to be successful. Whereas this, since it's I don't want to call it defensive, even though it is, it has a lot of flexibility to it because let's say you discover that the ridgeline is actually free and it is the most advantageous position as opposed to being assumed one, then you could push your Bravo squad up there underneath support of Alpha and Charlie in this case.
Did you say Charlie was going to shoot at one of those machine guns or no?
I said Charlie probably shouldn't, but if they get good shots, they can.
Yeah, okay.
The idea was that, so I was kind of imagining, right, you fix somebody with machine guns, you start pushing in with other forces unless you know you have artillery support. We didn't talk about artillery during this, so I kind of just assumed that there wasn't any.
Yeah.
And I would, if I had fixed the enemy, send squads down in these woods to get a closer engagement going. So it's a full moon, so you can still see-ish, like even though they don't have night vision sights, but...
Yeah, I think I forget if this is one of the later scenarios, but in the book they definitely harp on if you don't have, or fire without maneuver is not effective and maneuver without fire is doomed to fail or something along those lines. And so that's sort of why I'm very touchy on if the MMG with the squad looking at the HMG position will engage or not, because if you're not maneuvering on it, you might lift fire temporarily, but you're also wasting ammo because you're not actually accomplishing casualties. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So my thing in this instance is, regarding Lambda's plan is that battalion's getting hit right now by those machine guns. So it's like, yeah, we won't be decisive about it, but like, and we don't have like good contact reports as to like what needs to get hit right now. So like, my
Yeah.
instinct would be to like, what can I do from this position to help the guys being shot,
I
so that
think
they can maneuver a little more.
I
And
think that's a perfectly reasonable approach to it, right? You don't want your team dying because you're doing nothing, right? I think that also takes a shift in perspective as well, and this comes
Yeah.
up later in the answer to this problem as well, is thinking 2 levels up. This problem really changed my mindset on how I approach leadership in game, because it asks the question of what is battalion's goal, right?
yeah,
What are we actually here to do on a strategic level compared to our immediate tactical level? So if we think about it from that perspective of we want to lift fire on battalion, we're just one company out of this main body of battalion that's being hit, and we already know that the other company is maneuvering to accomplish that same flank, right? So what can we do that is going to affect perhaps the strategic level and open up and develop more options for our battalion to maneuver or move or think 2 steps ahead of what the enemy is going to do? We are the element, if we think back to that first ambush problem, right? We are the element that's not really been engaged yet. Yeah, they kind of know we're here, but that's going to take time to relay up. That's going to take time to maneuver troops on us. We have a lot of leeway and maneuver flexibility. What can we do with that the other companies can't, that will help develop a better battle space situation for them? So I think your answer is perfectly reasonable. I'm wondering if there is a more effective way to develop those options, though.
I counterpoint to at least I agree. Think
Yeah.
about the battalion, what they want.
go
I
ahead.
just don't think the assault is necessarily thinking about. It's thinking about making action, which I mean, making bold action can be very smart and useful, and you're obviously taking advantage of the moment of surprise that you have because that the tripwire you just tripped maybe hasn't had a chance to relay everything in detail yet, right? So you might have an opening there still, but at the same time, to accomplish the battalion's goal, you need to not like get your specific platoon fucked. and
True.
and I think if we listen to the briefing, right, the briefing says the battalion's already making movements to make a pincer from the east.
yeah.
And
I,
I don't think you can support that directly by getting a crossfire going where you're, behind them or in their line of fire.
Yeah. I tangentially, sort of not related to this, but I also think I think all of these plans really showcase the idea of just being present in a position, being threatening, right? Not necessarily the fire that you're outputting, because I think in both the assaulting plans and the more defensively minded plan or the more limited plans, the fire is not necessarily going to be the most effective considering the terrain, considering the distances involved, considering the forces involved. But by simply showing your presence in a particular area, you are implicitly threatening the enemy, and they will have to react to you. Like, for example, in Lambda and Albina's plan, they have a squad engaging the the machine gun sitting on the hill. That machine gun will either have to stop shooting, readjust to engage your platoon, or any variety of things that involve them doing something else to address you. And I think that's an important thing to note, is that as long as you're not sitting on the banks of the river or in a tree line, with no line of sight to contact, your presence is causing a reaction.
I would also, because I agree with that, I think that's a really good way to look at it. I would also like to counter Lambda's counter, have a whole 200 IQ play here.
Riposte.
Because I like what you're saying. It's like action for action's sake is not effective. It is not necessarily useful when you can maintain that flexibility. Correct me if I'm misquoting you. But
It wasn't necessarily about maintaining flexibility. It's more like bold action. I mean, obviously, you assumed you had some kind of protection in going up this western ridge. It's just a very risky plan where there's no really good contingency if it fails.
No,
Like,
and
your
I
plan
think
has
that
to work
is-
for it to work.
that's definitely a risk that I'm taking and could be caught out. I would also caveat that by saying that this isn't necessarily an assault. An assault would be coming up and around and specifically hammering into these. I'm making an aggressive recon play, which, again, is risky, right? But I'm looking to develop options because Battalion doesn't need to clear this. If we can go around, or if we can find another way to just avoid this situation, this isn't our mission. We're trying to help out our buddies up at Sanctuary City. And if we can bypass, or if we can see some other threat that's coming down, we can develop more options to protect Battalion as it's coming, but we're not going to be able to do that from down here. I think there's an argument that we can do it by sweeping around on this western flank, but I think aggressively when it comes to this, which again is a double-edged sword. And I think that's an interesting point for being able to make those kind of plays.
I agree that the goal here is to think about what Battalion wants and going forward to get the people of Haliborn assault that like is
Yeah.
pinned or surrounded. And I think, I don't know, maybe our balance of calculations here, because I think not getting caught up is more important to help that than.
I would like to also posit that in a more aggressive plan that takes the ridge line, again, going back to the concept of being in a position causing the enemy having to react, by taking that ridge line directly in front of us, that is forcing the enemy to have to think about whether or not they should lift and shift or be destroyed, right? Because being on that hilltop threatens the MMG positions or the machine gun positions, and they have to react to that, right? And it is a more threatening position on the ridge line, which will cause them to think about needing to escape, otherwise they're going to be fixed and destroyed.
Sure, yeah, that's fair.
I think that it's two very different mindsets, and I don't think either one of them is necessarily wrong. I think it just comes down to what your personal tolerance is for that risk.
For risk, yeah.
or again, like how you want to approach it, of maintaining the ability to move or not get caught out.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Again, I like this plan. I like this plan a lot.
yeah.
I don't know if
I'm-
I like it. I'm just I don't know. Something about just going and maneuvering onto a hill, right? Pretty simple idea. The distances is what really makes me hesitant, because if it's like 200
Yeah.
meters or so, like whatever, but that's like half a kilometer.
Yeah, and there's no trees on that hill. There's trees between the machine gun hill and your hill, but it is night.
It's not necessarily super risky. I understand where this is coming from, but it even if we're taking the hill at very face value of it's barren, you still have the finger that can occlude fire by being on the other side of it and other things.
But here's my problem about this. Like, we have a problem we know about, which is EI on the north side of the bridge, and then 2 machine guns. But there is a whole, like, the Western Narrow Pass. That is another potential avenue of your approach, right?
Mm-hmm.
There could be an equal enemy force there. So, like, what if, like, in the process of going up Sanctuary Ridge, like up here, right? You end up tied up. People turn around here. You get engaged. You're in a fight now.
So
Like, these are unknown problems.
this hits the concept of recon by fire, right? Is being shot at is understanding where the enemy is, and then you can make further decisions based off of that, right? Like, not knowing what you don't know can also be a poison, right? Like, if you're too afraid to find the enemy, then they can conduct maneuvers unbeknownst to you, which could cause the death of the whole company or whole battalion.
But in Lambda's example, Alpha's finding them there, like in that particular place. You can't see through the hill. Like,
I think that is a strength of Lambda's plan, is having this element can give you more eyes, and then you have the possibility of making those maneuvers.
Yeah.
I think it's two heads to the same
They're
coin.
all good plans, just different kinds of recon, different risk analyses.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we still have to get to Gators, unless anybody else has any discussion, because this has been wonderful picking everybody's brain.
So I have 2 now, because one is it's a little unfair. One is like a real one,
Yo.
I have a little bit. I
Did
have to
you,
pick your guys' brains.
Did you keep
that.
yourself to the 10-minute time limit?
I did actually. Well, my actual plan was like 2 minutes, but I had the prior knowledge of everyone else's plan.
Right.
So you guys want to see the meme or the actual plan first?
Let's do the actual plan. I'd like to pick your
So
brain.
it's yup real. So it's kind of a combination between Apo's and Lambda's plan. You have a blocking force and Charlie. You have blocking force Alpha left side and Charlie forward, and then Bravo eventually assaults the hill. But instead of going straight up the hill and taking taking the Sanctuary Ridge, about halfway through they hook a right. Charlie is kind of in Lambda's plan. Charlie is not necessarily engaging, but also like recon by fire, that kind of stuff. Kind of just distracting, turning fire, using the terrain as cover, the distance as cover, just distracting the MG, whilst Alpha is the blocking element for Bravo, and the Dragon team is also attached to Bravo. They use the ridgeline for cover up until Albino talked about foliage, using like foliage as cover. They take a right through this, they take advantage of this tree line to the right, and just the classic L-shape, hammer and anvil, Charlie and Bravo, they attack this MG position at the same time and try to eliminate this as soon as possible to take the relief off of the battalion. Mm-hmm. And then after the MG position is hopefully eliminated, and Bravo starts moving up to take Sanctuary Ridge, then that will be solved in the next scenario. But basically, Alpha is the western element, or the western blocking force. Charlie is kind of the bait and switch, while Bravo uses the terrain and the foliage to essentially flank the MG position.
If you don't mind, would you be willing to brief this as if you were addressing like your squads directly, like as if you were in game? So like you'd say like,
have you ever been in my fire team league? Because that's exactly how I'll do it. But no, I mean, like, so I'm not platoon qualified, so I usually don't like say that stuff. But it's more or less just like I would.
The main goal is just to talk through it as if you're talking to actual people. That's really the big goal.
Let me update this. So I mean, like prior to this, I would have like Alpha advancing from this way. Or
sorry, to clarify, it would be like, hey Alpha, I want you to push this western flank. Bravo, you'll go straight up the middle while Charlie holds your eastern flank. That type of stuff.
Like, all right, so Alpha, I need you to move 200 meters northwest. Be an element blocking force to stop anything coming from that road. And I'm assuming because that road links like that. Alpha, I need you to be western element blocking force while Bravo secures the lower tree line. Charlie, I need you moving along the road. So everyone would move like platoon column like that, and then we'd split off each way like this. Bravo hold position until further orders. Charlie, I need you to move along the road throughout the foliage. Try to engage or try to like scout out that position or that MMG position. Alpha just sit and wait until further orders. Try to like look out any contact elements coming from the north or the west. And then once Alpha and Charlie are set, Bravo, we are going to follow the defilade. And then once we are online with the foliage, we hook a right turn, and then we push through that, and then we just hammer and anvil set MMG position, try to eliminate as soon as possible. And then once Bravo and Charlie has eliminated the MMG position, the Bravo keeps moving north to secure Sanctuary Ridge. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I like that a lot better. It's good to get that practice in for session.
Yeah.
Platoon NT Gator soon, smile.
Never. Yeah, I mean, thoughts on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting compromise to have elements spread out like this. I guess my main concern is what would the mutual support look like? Because Alpha is now kind of out on their own while Bravo and Charlie focus this side.
Yeah, I mean, like thinking ahead of so then once Bravo has eliminated this, then they would just double back and then go up here to support Alpha, and then Alpha once Bravo is in position and secure of Sanctuary Ridge, once they have secured this hilltop, then Alpha can move up to join Bravo once Bravo is in position to base a fire of Alpha's advance.
Okay.
Did you would it be more worthwhile to have Alpha closer in initially until Bravo is able to take the hillside and then push them out?
Yeah, you're talking about like somewhere like around here.
Yeah.
Yeah. It kind of like said, I kind of just took. I had an unfair advantage because I got to do all your plans first. But yeah, it was like this is like where Lambda had circled, but yeah, somewhere because also that is like like their original position is like 300 meters away. So I guess somewhere around here, as long as that they're securing. One second, let me put it in gold. As long as Alpha is securing this road, that's all. That's all that really matters.
Okay. Yeah. Honestly, if you had delivered that intent of Alpha, I just want you to secure the road, I think that would have probably been a lot clearer because, yeah, I've noticed this. So this isn't a specifically you problem. I've noticed this in session where we put down a mark, and a lot of the times there's an intent attached to it, but it is not delivered. And so what happens is that squad or whatever will sit on the mark instead of sitting in a better position that follows the intent more efficiently or something along those lines.
Yeah. So maybe in reality, I'm just deleting a couple lines. Maybe in reality, it's more or less kind of Alpha 1 has the north side of this, like right here. Alpha 2 is right here. And then they just essentially have a checkpoint on this road to make sure nothing gets through.
Yeah.
And then if Alpha 1 is somehow engaged from, purple, if somehow they're engaged from up here, then Alpha 2, which is down here, can move to support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then hopefully by that time, Bravo will be up on the ridge line and able to put some inflating fire down.
At least for me, the priority for me was eliminating this MG position. That was the priority for me.
Okay. Small question here. Is Bravo assaulting through the low ground up onto the MG position?
I mean, so like I said, I just want them to use the low ground, like that canyon right here, like as cover, and then I just want them like, so not necessarily like through. Maybe they go like this. I don't know, but sorry, I keep drawing my mind, trying to make it more confusing. But like if you don't have elevation, at least in my book, if you don't have elevation, foliage makes up for that at least to an extent. So maybe they are low ground, but at least I was thinking that as long as they have hard cover in the forest, that's something.
I guess my critique of that would be they're now shooting up through a canopy, and they're getting fire from uphill that they're going to now have to assault uphill.
Yeah, so maybe they do a little bit of a
skirt the rim of the bowl.
Well, I just wanted their movements covered through the foliage at least.
Yeah, and I will say, in defense of NT Gator, he did specify that Charlie was supposed to be attracting fire.
That's fair.
So the hope is
be spotted along the way.
Yeah.
So by the time Bravo unless there's like unknown elements, as soon as Bravo reveals their position, it's already an L shape with Charlie involved.
Yeah, I think. Here's an interesting one. Say I was Bravo squad leader and I get told that I'm getting to do all this stuff. I think one of the things I'd be concerned as a squad leader is that I have a lot of responsibility placed on my shoulders to succeed here. Do you have anything that might assuage my fears or help me cope?
No, you're definitely right about that. The reason I picked Bravo because I'm always Bravo squad leader. Now you bring that up though. I mean, like Charlie's basically just saying, but I'm kind of assuming that the next part is like the next slide is like a continuation of this.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm assuming like so usually when we do missions like Bravo does the objective and then Alpha bounds past it and then Charlie bounds past. So like Bravo has a lot to do on this certain objective, but then they would essentially just sit tight while Alpha and Charlie maneuver afterwards. So all Bravo does is sit tight. Bravo just sits tight until Alpha and Charlie gets set, and then they move up, go to the foliage, clear the MMG, and then clear the ridge.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest objective is clearing the MMG. That's their biggest objective.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I got.
Lambda?
No, it's okay. I was looking at the wrong one for a second.
You're probably looking at my mean one.
I'm kind of excited to see the meme.
Yeah,
I think you might have to wait a few years for it to actually work, but.
I guess my one, if I had to give a comment, is that I think in this instance, like, how do I put it? Like, once let's say Bravo has complete surprise, they take the machine gun. I would assume from then on that the enemy knows Bravo has just taken that machine gun. This other machine gun can do something. Now, their attention is split. Is that more effective for the battalion? I would say so. But whatever unknown units are erroneously over here,
Yeah.
or like Bravo's taking the brunt of everything that comes their way after that. And it's harder for them to be reinforced because the enemy knows that Bravo's there.
Yeah, for sure.
And if Charlie tries to cross to reinforce them, then this machine gun can shoot at them, albeit like that. What is that, like 50 yards?
Something like that, yeah.
That's like 100 yards, meters. Sorry, that's like 100 meters from Charlie's tree line to the first elevation that'll protect them from that second machine gun, which that one other machine gun has a lot to do. But
No, you're right. That I mean, I feel like that's what everyone said. That if like something goes wrong, when something will go wrong with Bravo, then they're kind of got their neck stuck out.
I don't think I think Alpha's in a good enough position to help.
Yeah.
Honestly. Like I think Alpha can definitely maneuver to support Bravo. But
I'm not so sure that they could in time.
Oh,
I mean, the biggest problem
timeliness,
is, not
yeah.
even time. It's just like they would have to push across that field. themselves.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So it would be nasty business. But yeah.
My fear for Bravo is whatever's on like the north side of the ridge,
Yeah.
or on the western narrow pass.
Mm.
And that view, I think Alpha would be quite effective in that instance, and Charlie can be like a reserve.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, fair.
Yeah, that reverse slope is a big unknown.
So what about like I kind of got ahead of myself. What about instead of Bravo takes Sanctuary Ridge, once the MMG falls, then they just hold tight in that foliage until Charlie and Alpha is
Go
ready to
back
step
into
off.
the foliage.
So yeah, so after that, so this purple circle. So once they take out the MMG position and the L shape has been done, then they just hold position until Alpha and Charlie can maneuver further.
I think in that situation you run into the same problem where if something comes over this ridge, now you're even more fucked.
Yeah.
Because you would have to retreat back through there, or you would just be in a bowl getting shot at.
Yeah.
It might honestly be better, and this is just a thought, to have them just chill on the destroyed MFG nest or whatever it is here.
Yeah, that can make a point. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
It is still dangerous there.
Yeah, it's definitely a risky proposition no matter what you do here. It's just a matter of what risk you're willing to take.
Because I think the other risk there is you already know your other element is maneuvering onto this, and now you're perfectly lined up to conflict with your fires.
Yeah.
I also think that taking that reverse slope defense is probably pretty decent, since it should be a full moon.
Mhm.
And if they're doing skylining, you should be able to see them pretty well. It should be harder to see you merging with the
Yeah.
terrain, looking down the hill.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about from the bowl, from the foliage in this bowl here.
I was talking about Bravo taking like a reverse slope defense on the inside the bowl, I guess.
I think that's all fun and games till they start throwing hand grenades at you.
Fair.
Hopefully you kill them fast enough.
Yeah.
There is this great thing called gravity, so you can always just hope they go past.
What I'm trying to weigh here is like the benefits of, okay, you're on this ridge. I literally did mention how this ridge is dangerous, but like if you go off that ridge, you're giving up all your sight lines from up there.
Yeah.
And you might be less in danger from someone coming up this reverse slope on the north side if you see them first, or if you don't see them. You very suddenly, you see them on the reverse slope. They're skylining. What happens when you kill two of them and the rest lay down, and now they know where you are, and they're gonna make a plan to kill you. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll go home.
Maybe they just want to.
They might flee like the LP team, hopefully.
Yeah, maybe. I
Uh,
don't know who these guys are. I don't know what kind of food they eat. I can't judge their military capability.
so I think it would be funny to really go over Gator's meme plan, and then Stockton should be done with his plan. We can review that, and then we'll have about 30 minutes to read the end of this, because I think it would be a really good one to read. It's got a lot of good advice in it.
My meme plan will take about 2 seconds to read.
Hell yeah. Let's go.
Cool. Does that sound copacetic to everyone?
Good on the beach.
All right, let's do it.
All right. So it starts off the same way. Everyone's in the same tree line. But instead of going forward, everyone just falls back, and then you got the J-Tac sitting in his little fucking beach chair. He's got the umbrella. He's got his feet kicked up. He's got his feet crossed. And he just calls it a fucking spear and just blows up the whole fucking ridgeline. And that's about it. Because that's American doctrine, is just call the Air Force to blow the shit up anyway.
Leave it to the taxpayers.
Absolutely.
And then we tack nuke Sanctuary City.
Absolutely.
Fuck the airplane.
It is a B2 Spirit. It probably's got a nuke on there somewhere.
That is true.
This is something I was thinking when Gator mentioned that there was a meme plan. I hadn't looked at it, but I'm thinking like, you know, what if you just like put a small blocking force on the road, and then your other two squads charge the the bridge flank, like it just completely pushed them off, like.
Fix bayonets.
I don't see it coming.
You know what Barr always said? He says violence of action, right?
I'm there.
Barr was
but
at
I'm
the.
curious, like, are they? Would you assume that the enemy has good security to their west in that unit that is already engaged?
Everyone's got a
getting
plan.
engaged by your whole battalion. If you have confidence in your own battalion's competency, then they're focused on them. You come out of the woods. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
I mean, everyone's got a plan until they're punched in the face, and a bayonet is a pretty damn good punch.
Yeah, no, I mean,
I don't literally mean bayonet, but like, you know, close the distance
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
that road, basically.
as much as we're memeing, yeah, I mean, being aggressive but with purpose is always a solid plan. You just have to be willing to take the risk, right? Like Lambda was saying in regards to the more aggressive plans, the risk calculation is something that you have to weigh. If you deem that, you know, charging a known enemy force that is fleeing you is a risk you're willing to take, 100% it could work out, right? You're just willing to accept a higher level of risk.
No, I mean the contact battalion's taken on the bridge.
Oh, the machine guns? Yeah, I mean, even
Yeah.
in that case too, right?
No, I don't even mean the machine guns. I mean the positions that the battalion is.
Oh, so like going back to the bridge.
Oh my god. So like fucking
Yeah,
yeah, I was gonna say like fucking like that.
yeah, literally, because like you're not actually adding any unknowns except the specific positions that the enemies are in, and if you can do something to lay at least one of those machine guns off of you personally while you do that, I mean, like if we're talking about like speeding up this process, like
Yeah.
you know, you kill those enemies at the bridge. There's just two dinky little machine guns that only do 50% damage. You know.
You know, it's funny because the answers in the back of the book do actually talk about this particular solution.
Really? Yeah, I want to see what
Or
they
something
have.
very, very similar.
It is giving up. What I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot about this, but like it is giving up the west flank. But if we're talking about speed, like if we're trying to just get through this pass, like and get past whatever flank they're trying to do from the west, then I don't know. I'm curious to see what the Marine Corps has
Yeah,
to say.
I mean, my main plan. If you need, command says that we need to clear a town, call the Air Force. They'll clear the town off the fucking map.
And if we don't have the Air Force, we HIMARS it.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, let's start moving on. It looks like Stockton just finished his op. Does your mic work, Stockton? I know you were saying. I saw a green circle.
Where's
No.
No.
Rip.
I think that's why Stockton was writing it out, so that just paste it.
Yeah, if you just want to paste it out, or if you have any way you want to
Who,
go
wa-
about it.
who wants to be
Oh.
Stockton's voiceover?
Stockton's gone?
I think he fled. Oh.
I
Oh
don't think
no.
Stockton's is up on the thingy.
Yeah.
Well, we can move on to the back of the book then, if that
I'm
works
down.
for everybody.
Let me scroll. I will put it up on this. Oh,
Welcome
Stockton's
back.
back.
Oh, he's back. Can you take a picture and post it in the side chat, and we can read it for you?
The old school tabletop style pen and paper, baby.
Make sure you take out the metadata so we can't GPS your position. You don't want to dox yourself. Oh, he typing.
We're going in.
All the way.
Yeah,
You can also type out your frag ord if that works better for you.
that's more typing.
Just start doing voice memos on the phone and posting it.
I'm honestly, while we're waiting for Stockton, I really like how we've done this particular session. I think it's a lot more involved. I wonder if that first one was just because we were like warming up to it, but everybody seemed a lot more comfortable in talking about their plans and giving feedback, which is
Yeah.
really nice to see.
At least from my perspective, I'm not platoon qualified, so it's like I might as well just throw everything at the board and see what sticks.
I mean, that's the best way to learn, right? Is like just
exactly.
doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Is
this
anyone
provides like a
really
perfect.
platoon qualified?
Fuck no. Unless you're Antares in the army, or Fenn, who's an actual lieutenant in the Marine Corps. Although, maybe Marines shouldn't be trusted with platoons.
You're literally, this is all like Marines writing about tactics and following.
Exactly, and they shouldn't be trusted.
They are very aggressive and good at dying.
I'm sure Fenn would agree.
They used to be more so modern. They're better at training than most, I think. But
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about World War II Marine Corps, you just have to look at Iwo Jima and see the loss of life there, and it's kind of like, okay.
well, it's more complex than just like, yeah, anyways, yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut that off.
I mean, we're just waiting right now. We're chilling. It's
Yeah.
perfect time to bullshit. Yeah, I would definitely say that the Marine Corps has definitely pivoted to a more elite force for sure in the modern day.
Sure. Especially now that they got rid of their first armor. It's more focused on like, small unit.
Yeah, extreme light infantry.
It sounds like they might be coming full circle and bringing it back though from a lot of
That's 100% what they're doing.
Yep. Pivoting back to an island hopping focus.
That's 100% it, because Mr. Red Dragon is not making us happy. Mr.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, this is an actual Frago. Hell yeah.
We got admin. Oh no, sorry, this isn't. Okay. It's not on the server. Cool.
Okay.
Absolute fail to have any plan. That's fine. At least you got the most important thing, which is guard left flank of 3-6.
Yeah.
It could have been worse.
we're gonna go with the right flank.
Could be
Defaults to Lambda and Albino's plan 3 for 5.
could be attack 3-6's flank.
They'd never see it coming. It'd be like, great. I have so much.
That's a kill, right?
You know that mini arc in Catch 22 where a guy bombs his own airfield?
Oh,
because
God.
Because okay. If I explained why he bombed his own airfield, we'd be here all day.
Okay.
Because he was ordered to.
Fair enough.
Stockton, if you're alright, do you mind if we move on to the answers in that case? Alright, cool.
I can start reading unless anyone else is fiending for it.
It is on page 62 of the PDF, 48 on the numbered pages. Bullshit.
Yeah, what he said.
62 on the PDF.
In the left-hand bar if you're using Chrome.
Back on narrow pass.
Yep. I want to read first. Apple, you read too
Generated
much.
a lot of controversy.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I will go first.
All right, go for it.
Attack on narrow pass. Thinking 2 levels up. Again. This scenario generated a lot of controversy when it first appeared in the MCG in March 1991, although we discussed the importance of thinking at least 2 levels up in the previous 2 scenarios. It's a point of such significance that it's worth making again. The basic problem in Attack on Narrow Pass is how the platoon commander can best further the accomplishment of the battalion's mission. Some readers felt very strongly that the best way the platoon commander could support the battalion was to guard its flank, as explicitly ordered, and nothing more. Others completely ignored the flank guard mission and moved off to strike the enemy in the flank, either at the bridge or at the pass, to take the pressure off of the battalion. This scenario exhibits other similarities to the previous ones. As in Platoon Ambush, while separated from the main body with the mission of protecting its flank, we discover a threat to the main body, but not from our area of responsibility. As in Ambush at Dusk, the main body is heavily engaged, while our unit enjoys freedom of action and is potentially in a position to directly help the main body. If nothing else, this illustrates the point that while different situations may exhibit similarities, no 2 situations are the same. We must solve each problem on its own merits, not according to the way we solved a similar problem. Our solution to Ambush at Dusk, for example, may not be appropriate in the Attack on Narrow Pass. So what's the enemy up to? As always, we should try to get a handle on the enemy's intention. We know that the enemy has a fairly strong position at Narrow Pass, but this doesn't necessarily mean a large force. As Clausewitz's quote indicates, the proper use of difficult terrain can confer exceptional combat power to even a relatively small force. The enemy has seen fit to place an outpost south of the dry gully to add depth to his defense. The fact that the enemy is able to use his heavy machine guns— oh, those are heavy machine guns, okay. To use his heavy machine guns to fire over the heads of his outpost at night indicates that this is no hasty position, but has been carefully prepared. Without question, this will be one tough nut to crack. In fact, if we're going to take Narrow Pass, the way to do it is not frontally, but from the flanks, attacking along the spine of the high ground to negate the strength of the enemy positions. What about the Western Narrow Pass? The patrol we ran into fled in that direction. The enemy almost certainly has forces positioned there. The question is, how many? Our platoon has already reached the east-west road, and the only enemy we have met are the listing posts we chased off. My guess is that the Western Narrow Pass is not as heavily defended, although we don't know for certain. What about the ridgeline between the passes? Our vehicles may not be able to cross, but as Napoleon said, our infantry can go anywhere 2 men can set foot. To this point, our platoon has seen no sign of enemy forces along the ridge, but again, we simply don't know for sure. There are possibilities here worth exploring. And what about the enemy's tanks, which we haven't heard from yet? If I were the enemy in this situation, I would prefer to hold my tanks in reserve north of the ridge on the Western Narrow Pass road, midway between the 2 passes. As the enemy approached one pass or the other, my concept would be to drive south through the other pass and strike the enemy flank via the east-west road south of the ridge. Lambda.
What are our options?
I know. I just don't love to read.
Oh, okay. I won't pop.
No, it's okay. I've learned to read really well by skimming because that's most of the reading I do for work. So.
Absolutely.
Anyways.
Absolutely.
yeah. Most papers have a lot of filler. Anyways, what are our options? So where does this leave us? Option 1, guard the flank. Let the battalion commander worry about the battalion. As Lieutenant Colonel S.A. Clay wrote, the great temptation in this situation is to display excessive initiative at the expense of carrying out very clear-cut specific orders. The battalion commander instructed the platoon leader to guard the battalion's left flank. There was nothing iffy, conditional, or provisional about this mission. Guard the left flank. The battalion commander clearly has the right to expect his left flank will be screened and protected. At the very least, he will be alerted if a significant threat emerges from the west along the road, the rocky gully, or any of the adjacent terrain. Unlike Ambush at Dusk, or Platoon Ambush, you might argue that this situation of the main body is not obviously in dire straits. The battalion is heavily engaged, true, but who's to say it won't fight its way through without our help? Moreover, in this situation, we do have communications with higher headquarters. As a result, do we have less of an excuse for acting on our own initiative? Given the apparently unimaginative tactics of the battalion, you might infer that our battalion commander will probably not be too tolerant of subordinates who demonstrate too much independence. Because we're concerned about battalion's success, at a minimum, we may offer to direct supporting arms against the enemy machine gun position. We might even go so far as to direct one of our machine guns at the western enemy machine gun position. It says, betraying our own presence in the process. Option 2. Attack the enemy near the narrow bridge. As with going directly to the platoon's aid and ambush at dusk, supporting battalion by the option is not a good idea. As Major Dirk, Jay Venkinson, sorry if anyone's here named Dirk, it's a funny name to me. It would be foolhardy to rush directly to the aid of the command battalion under confusing circumstances, darkness, and with such a small force. This is especially true since the battalion seems to be conducting an attack around the enemy's flank, i.e. towards us, attacking east. We would put ourselves directly in the line of friendly fire. Moreover, the option would put us under fire of the same machine guns that are engaging the battalion. As we've said before, this would mean surrendering freedom of action. If we're intent on helping the battalion out of its predicament, there are more far-reaching ways to do it. For example, option 3. Launch a flank attack against the enemy holding the pass. You might argue that looking at the bigger picture, we know we must do everything we can to facilitate battalion getting through narrow pass. And the best way to do this is to attack the enemy holding the pass in the flank. You might argue convincingly that the actual problem to the battalion's front makes a possible threat to the flank of the less immediate concern. I would argue, however, that an enemy counterattack with tanks east via western narrow pass is a likely enemy response and cannot be simply ignored. In opposition, you might argue that our platoon is not big enough force to overtake the enemy, but has managed to stop the battalion. Is not a big enough force to overtake an enemy that has managed to stop the battalion. But the American military historian S.L.A. Marshall wrote, I'm not going to do it twice. For the infantry soldier, the great lessons of minor tactics in our time, the overpowering effect of relatively small amounts of fire when delivered from the right ground at the right hour, the salient characteristic of most of our great victories and a few of our defeats has been that they pivoted on the first action of a few men. I skipped a quote here, so I'll read that quick. Simply put, the idea is to avoid enemy surfaces and exploit enemy gaps. We try to avoid the enemy where and when he is strong and strike him where and when he is weak or vulnerable. Going back to the passage, as we've already discussed, it's anybody is going to take narrow pass, it's probably going to be from the flank as opposed to frontally. Albina, do you want to pick up at option 4?
Yeah. Option 4, protect flank while also developing other options. Perhaps you've reached a conclusion that you can't ignore your orders to guard the flank. That in fact, an enemy counterattack from the west is a distinct possibility. But at the same time, you realize that battalion isn't going to get through narrow pass using its current approach. Perhaps you know that your battalion commander is going to start considering other routes across Sanctuary Ridge and expects his subordinates to use initiative to develop opportunities. So you might establish a blocking position with your dragons and machine guns and most of the platoon on the spur east of Western Narrow Pass. And at the same time, send a patrol up the spur to the crest of the ridge to ascertain enemy dispositions. We don't know if the ridge or Western Narrow Pass will offer a way for the battalion to get into Sanctuary Plain. The only thing we know for certain is that Narrow Pass won't. From a central position on the ridge, we are in a good position to flank either of the passes or move against the enemy. Machine gun positions from the rear. If we push out west along the ridge, we are also in a position to continue to protect the battalion's left flank by closing down Western Narrow Pass.
Ooh, me.
What? I have a gun.
Fuck you, Apple.
I'll kill you, I'll kill you, I'll kill you.
Yeah, Apple has to go first.
Who's going?
Apple.
Oh, fuck.
Bitch. What about battalion? Unlike the previous scenarios, in this situation, our commander does have communication with higher headquarters. No matter what decision the platoon commander makes, it's important that he contact battalion to report the situation as he sees it from his vantage point and to suggest any possible options for battalion. It's perhaps a little bit unfair to put a platoon commander in the position of having to make all these decisions about how the battalion ought to act, although it could happen. Hopefully, our platoon commander is not the only person thinking at the battalion level. Hopefully, the battalion commander has got a few ideas himself. Hopefully, our platoon commander is not the only person in the battalion who realizes that we probably ought to at least start looking at some other options for getting across Sanctuary Ridge. That decision ought to belong to the battalion commander, and this scenario could just as easily have been designed as a battalion problem. If our battalion commander is intent on forcing his way frontally through Narrow Pass no matter what, there may be nothing our platoon can do to prevent disaster. But the battalion commander certainly ought to be considering other plans and ought to be open to suggestion from his subordinates. The question is, what will it take for the battalion commander to shift his axis of advance away from Narrow Pass? Surfaces and gaps. This brings us to another fairly simple but extremely important concept, surfaces and gaps. This is not a new concept. It has been around for ages in various guises. As Colonel Michael D. Wiley, one of our leading tactical thinkers, it is unimportant whether you refer to this concept as surfaces and gaps, or soft spot tactics, or simply the idea of pitting your strength against the enemy's weakness. Call it what you will. The great Sun Tzu used an analogy from nature. Now, any army may be likened to water, for just as flowing water avoids the height and hastens to the lowlands, so an army avoids strength and strikes weakness. And as water shapes its flow in accordance with the ground, so an army manages its victory in accordance with the situation of the enemy. And as water has no constant form, there are in war no constant conditions. Thus, one able to gain the victory by modifying his tactics in accordance with the enemy's situation may be said to be divine. Taking his cue from Sun Tzu, Little Hart developed the expanding torrent theory. If we watch a torrent bearing down on each successive bank of earth and dam in its path, we see that it first beats against the obstacle, feeling it and testing it at all points. Eventually, it finds a small crack at some point. Though through this crack pour the first driplets of water and rush straight on. The pent-up water on each side is drawn towards the breach. It swirls through and around the flanks of the breach, wearing away the earth on each side and so widening the gap. Simultaneously, the water behind pours straight through the breach. Simply put, the idea captured in these quotes is to avoid enemy surfaces and exploit enemy gaps. Or, in other words, we try to avoid the enemy where and when he is strong, and strike him where and when he is weak or vulnerable. Gaps may be actual physical gaps in the enemy's dispositions, or they may be an exploitable weakness, spatial, technological, moral, etc. Likewise, a surface may be an actual strong point, or it may be an enemy capability. In our scenario, Narrow Pass clearly is a surface. There may be gaps elsewhere. We won't know until we take action to find out. In the words of FMFM1 Warfighting, due to the fluid nature of war, gaps will rarely be permanent and will usually be fleeting. To exploit them demands flexibility and speed. We must actively seek our gaps by continuous and aggressive reconnaissance. In option 4, our platoon commander is actively seeking out gaps as FMFM1 instructs. By sending a patrol north to the ridge, we know that the enemy is aware of our platoon's presence because we chased off one of his LPs. If the ridgeline or western narrow pass isn't defended in strength, we can bet that the enemy is sending reinforcements in a hurry. If we don't act quickly, we are going to find that our possible gap has turned into a surface. FMFM1 continues. Once we locate gaps, we must exploit them by funneling our forces through rapidly. For example, if our focus of effort has struck a surface but another unit has located a gap, we shift the focus of effort to the second unit and redirect our combat power in support of it. In this manner, we pull combat power through gaps from the front rather than pushing it through from the rear. I suggest that in our battalion, the platoon commander should know that the battalion commander expects him to actively probe for gaps routinely, and that the battalion commander, realizing he has struck a surface in the situation, should be ready to redirect his companies behind our platoon. As for the original flank guard mission, our battalion commander, realizing that our platoon is in the best position to find a gap, should consider assigning another unit to protect the flank and should cut our platoon commander loose to develop the situation.
So you're telling me I had to have read the Marine Corps field manuals?
You're reading the pertinent parts now.
Required knowledge.
Yeah. The bottom line. One main reason this scenario caused such disagreement among readers is that the situation was so uncertain and allowed for widely differing assumptions and interpretations. One of the main points of this book is the importance of decisiveness in the face of incomplete information. However, a certain amount of information is essential to making a sound decision. Indecisiveness leads to disaster, but going off half-baked can be just as disastrous. There's a lot more about the situation that we ought to know before we commit ourselves. What is the situation at Western Narrow Pass? Does the enemy hold the ridge in strength? What is the actual threat to the left flank? A good commander has to know when he has enough information to make an informed decision, and when he needs to develop the situation to gain more information. More about this later. So yeah, I think this example gives such interesting food for thought when it comes to these tactical decisions. And like I've been harping about in like some people's leadership threads and also in these discussions, is that thought of thinking 2 levels above. Because I think it's a really fascinating way to think of your purpose and what the commander's intent should be for executing a mission. Yeah, because if you're just given a marker or an objective, but you can think about what your superiors are actually wanting from it beyond just moving to a mark on a map, you're able to flex into really interesting positions or actually support in a better way than is laid out without the knowledge you're reconnoitering.
Yeah.
And I do think, legitimately, all of our plans that we have made today cover that. None of us failed to do that, in my opinion.
The only actual failure in this would be being indecisive and not taking action.
Yeah, we all decided to either be defensive or aggressive. No, no in between.
Yep.
Well, I think we. Yeah. Yes, I agree.
I mean, I would say sending like 5 people up onto the ridge with everyone else behind. That's pretty. Like that's a risk for them, I guess. But like, so I'm sorry. I'm gonna interrupt a little more because I think part of my thought process going into this, and I think a part of a lot of people's thought process is from playing Arma, you kind of learn to assume that communications are going to be perfect. A little bit, or you just have that context. So even when you read that like it's hard to get comms or like messages are unclear, I feel like there's a lot more, especially in what they're talking about with the field manuals and like, you know, what doctrine says your commander should expect. In Arma, maybe we expect to be quite authoritative, like saying the commander says what he wants instead of you having to already know doctrinally what the commander will want.
I think that's
you can't exactly get what the commander wants in that moment necessarily.
I would argue that happens in Arma as well, where platoon or your command is in such a helmet fire, or there is so much traffic going on with FAC, with armor, with GOI, that you're not able to get that information through, or platoon is already dealing with something else, and you actually have leeway to seize that initiative in that moment, rather than waiting for them to get back to you. You can make a split-second call and go for it. Maybe that's the right call, maybe it's not, but you're still putting in place a plan. And a bad plan executed quickly is better than a good plan at rest.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree with what App was saying as well. I think it's maybe less evident for most of the ops because they're mainly like a weak weak platoon at best. But
yeah,
under strength, that's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, and I would also say that with how our leadership has been and what we're trying to fix, is that intent has been difficult to be received. Exactly. Where a lot of our leadership doesn't give intent in part of that briefing because it's a soft skill, right? It's not something that's really laid out when it comes to the documentation that we've been given, and it's something you pick up as you go. Shit, man, I'm guilty of this. But like, that is another aspect where it is good to have that intent moving into it, but you're not always going to have it. And so being able to think ahead, think of what the overall mission is, and then kind of come up with what the intent should be is a good way to make up for that, if not perfect.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think we used up our full 2 hours on this one, right?
Yeah, we're about
But yeah.
10 minutes off, but yeah, I very much value the discussions that we had because I don't know, it's made me think quite a bit, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I hope everybody else had that same thing happen to them. I know
No,
I
it's definitely
particularly
helpful.
enjoy it. Yeah.
I love that we had such different interpretations on this too. Because like I have a very particular mindset when it comes to developing my plans, and I know Chesh and I usually agree on how aggressive to get. So talking with more defensively minded, I don't want to say players, but more defensively minded leaders, and getting that perspective has been brilliant in expanding that horizon too.
Yeah.
Because like
I think part of it
legitimately,
is that.
Oh,
uh,
go ahead.
Do you want to go first or should I?
I was just gonna say, I legitimately, I think, uh, having people that have different plans, especially so dynamically different, has really shifted my perspective. Because I honestly see myself agreeing with Lambda and Albina more on this because I see it as a step one to a step two plan, right? Like they how they planned their maneuvers and whatnot allows for that aggressiveness, and that's really what you want at the end of the day. And I think if I had seen these plans beforehand and incorporated this knowledge into my planning phase, I would have set up 3 phases. The first phase looking almost identical to maybe Lambda's plan or Albina's plan, but the second phase being taking the ridge line, and then the third phase being an if-ands on destroying the MMG position or HMG position like NT Gator did, something along those lines. Because these plans aren't necessarily interfering with each other. They are actually, in my opinion at least, very conducive to flowing with each other.
Yeah. A lot has to do with time, and like
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah, the Marine Corps was talking about how gaps are often fleeting.
Yeah, just agency, like what do they call it? Maneuver warfare.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like
Balance of aggression.
I think another part of the exercise is very interesting is having that 10-minute time limit. It's like, okay, you have 10 minutes to consider what to do. After that, like, you gotta go. Like,
Yeah.
something's gotta happen. So
I think. Oh, God.
I think the skill of developing a plan in 10 minutes and seeing where it could go from there, and setting up that first step so that step 2 and 3 can come later. I think that's a particular skill as well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead.
Going back to what I was going to say a little bit earlier, basically what Chesh said as well is that a lot of what, at least I was doing when I was thinking about this, is a lot of preparing for the next step. Like this is like maybe 10 minutes of planning ahead at this point, and then contingencies from there. And I guess I could be more explicit with those contingencies going forward, but I don't know. I don't know if it's worth, in my mind, all the time developing like the full movement plan up to this narrow pass. If if you look at if Bravo saw like, oh wow, there's a bunch of emplacements on the U.S. side that we didn't see originally because we couldn't see the name. Or
Yeah, I agree. It's difficult to measure that time. I would like to think that it would be good to choose the top 2 ones, but even then, you may not get the time to brief that, right? Like you're saying.
Yeah.
Like it's difficult to gauge that for sure.
Bad plan quickly beats a plan at rest.
The other factor that someone trained to do this professionally has an advantage over us is that they have battle drills that all they need to do is like say 3 words and people generally know what to do. But like we're regular people, so like we would need an exact like instead of me saying Bravo go here off the road and then Alpha go there on the end of the road. You could just say whatever battle drill encompasses a L-shaped ambush, and then they'd do it.
Yeah, or even just saying like using specific language like you are to establish an enfilading position protecting our left flank or something like that, and people would inherently know that because they understand the language.
Yeah, exactly. But like we don't have that because we're not.
Get your FTL friends to come here so we can say that.
We make more money than do this. So.
I guess I value my self-worth in economic terms. Sure.
You know what? These are officers talking about this. I'm wrong. I make more than a corporal. All right.
Okay.
What a low bar.
The flex.
How much is
Are you also planning on buying like a charger?
At 15% APR.
Oh my god! What? I read a post somewhere that was saying, yeah, it was like, yeah, I look over at the barracks and the enlisted barracks, and it looks like it's a cross between a lifted truck convention and the next Fast and Furious movie.
I swear, like, cars do affect combat readiness.
I need you to explain that one.
Morale.
It is morale, but then your morale goes down because of the decision you made in the past that gave you temporary, like,
Catharsis.
Yeah, and now you're like, fuck, I gotta live with this piece of garbage, and I need to pay for it. I thought I could live in the barracks, but it's just mold and ants everywhere, and roaches, and I'm like, I'm not gonna live here. I gotta pay rent now.
Yeah, and your medical bills from treating the mold.
Exactly. So that affects combat readiness. That's important.
Yeah.
It's a matter of national security that we get.
Lower car insurance or car rates.
Yeah, literally. That's our military effectiveness.
All right, we are 2 minutes out from the end time, but I think, Apo, unless you've got anything else, I'm good to end it here.
I think that's golden. This has been a great session.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys for coming out. Thank you for attending. We'll be running another one the week after next. So if you,
19, baby.
yeah, if you want to see the follow-on mission that we were supposed to do, or we were going to do initially, we'll be running that then.
Send me a reminder. I'll join. Send me a reminder.
Sure.
There is also the event posted in the events tab.
No one pays attention to that.
Yeah, I'll put on one of you guys.
Yep.
Lambda? Is the 5 p.m. time gonna stick around, or are we willing to?
I am good to bump it an hour, but Apo, you have some reservations?
I'm good to bump it. I'll talk to my partner and see if they're okay with that. But
I mean, yeah, if it's that big of a deal, I can just.
Oh, it's not a massive deal. I think it'll be fine.
He says.
Look, if it's more conducive to everybody, I think it's fair.
Even like. You know what? I'll just be 15 minutes late. I think that works.
Okay.
That's the best thing about Central Time is any time works for me.
I'm in Central Time. I just work until 5.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna like sit in my office for 2 hours after work talking about our or how to do TDGs.
That's
Are you
fair.
American?
Yeah.
CST.
Do you think I
That
was?
thick accent.
I thought somehow you'd be European.
I strangely insulted, but I'm not insulted necessarily, but like confused.
Poor
know,
Hussar.
It somehow felt like the company that we mutually kept were all Europeans.
They really weren't though. They're like mainly Americans. There was like a few European. Anyways, there was fewer Europeans than I thought there were. Our list of Europeans peeled out first.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna talk more about things with them. You can keep going.
If we figure out that we will be bumping it, we'll make an announcement ahead of time and make sure we ping all the TDG folks. So we'll let you know in advance and adjust the event time. All right. I'm gonna dip though.
Bye.
I'll catch y'all later.